Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where social crazy widows and all of our nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello and good evening, everyone.
And I am your host, / Time Lord wannabe, the brainstorm of pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
Apart from the potential food poisoning, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, that is the one thing I've never had. I've overstuffed myself before, where I vomited, but I've never actually had food poisoning.
I've had it a couple times. This one
Well,
time
okay, you know what?
Go ahead.
I don't know if it technically counts, but I've eaten food sometimes where I've had, I guess you could say, the runs.
Yes, that counts.
Okay, well then I guess
that's probably the lowest threshold for food poisoning.
Okay, then I guess I have. Then never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, on to less shitty topics. Badum-bum-tish.
Really?
Sorry. It was right there, and I would have regretted not saying it.
All right. Yeah. Give me a sec to get this up and running. So it's gonna be the last week's article that we didn't cover, simply because of time, and also I was very sleepy.
Place your bets now as to how far we'll make it into this week's topics before either Brainstormer's tiredness or my body will require us to cut it short.
Knocking on wood there.
Place your bets now, audience.
Okay. All right. So this from. Well, hold on. Let me. Okay. Oh, there we go. Oh, God damn it. I know what I meant to do. Okay. So this is from CBR.com. Because my computer's crap, it doesn't look like the standard CBR page. Looks like just little text here, so bear with us on that. Clayface DC is officially replacing Batman. No shit.
Yeah, while there is only ever going to be one definitive Batman, that being Mr. Kevin Conroy, there have been many Batmen over the years, both in live action and in animation.
Yeah, but I think they were referring to live action, which,
It's kind of stupid that they didn't just call Matt Reeves up, give him several dump trucks worth of money, and told him, weave this into the DC universe proper, please.
It really wasn't that. It really wouldn't have been that hard either.
It really wouldn't have. No.
It's a year two.
Very easy.
It's a year two Batman. Hell, and I don't know why people have said this was a more grounded take on Batman.
It's one of the most visually stylized takes on the character ever in live action.
And
I'm not That is a bad
I,
thing. I that's probably the best aspect of the Batman movies.
right, but even some like the things he does are very fantastical. While have a
Hmm.
sense of realism to it, sure,
Yeah,
but
it's very obviously doing the like quasi noir detective thing, which given how little actual detectiving Batman has done in his live action iterations, I think I speak for all of us when I say thank fuck they finally remembered that he is a detective.
which okay, I mean, even like other movies have shown it, but it's paid very little. Like that's kind of his core aspect to as a character. At least
I think
one of his core aspects.
I think in terms of live action iterations, the Keaton one is still probably the best prior to the Pattinson Reeves one. Um, and even that was mostly him plugging things in either to the onboard computer in the Batmobile or the computer in the Batcave, the Bat computer. So like yeah, it was very good of Matt Reeves to go, what if we hyperfixated on the detective aspect?
Yeah, and it works.
It also works in the context of assuming that Matt Reeves did get over himself and was willing to fold the Batman into DC, Gunverse continuity. This is also a Superman fairly early on in his tenure as
Yeah.
well.
Okay, if I remember correctly, um, so yeah, it was year two, like mid year two, I want to say for Battinson,
Yeah,
and it was like year three for uh
Corn Sweat Superman.
yeah.
So yeah, this could have been very easily accomplished if anyone at Warner Brothers knew anything about what they were doing with the DC IP.
I mean, like, look, I can kind of understand from an artistic thing. I still think it's stupid, but I understand like not wanting to be forced into a mold.
But here's the
Like trying to
baffling thing with regards to that argument. You are choosing to use a pre-established IP in a pre-established universe. And in a post MCU world, we no longer have to do the like everything in its own little pocket universe thing. So
yeah,
like
I,
if you sign up for using a pre-established IP in a pre-established universe, you don't then get to go, but not the rest of that stuff. It
um sorry, I wanted to bring this up too. With again, with how like how it was set up and everything, like the Batman, right?
Mhm.
And the Penguin as well. Like
Yeah.
everything it's on this like okay, I think I kind of explained it a bit when we were doing the review of it
Mhm.
of the movie when it came out,
Yeah.
which was 2022.
4 years ago.
Okay, I'm not gonna get extensive on that. Um, is that how Gotham is shown and portrayed both in the Batman and in the Penguin show, which is a
Mhm.
direct sequel to the Batman because it takes like a week after the events of the Batman
Yeah.
movie. Gotham, as it stands at that time and place, is on a precipice, like
Yeah.
a cultural shift, a paradigm shift from the cops and robbers, classic like very Detroit, very
Film
degraded
noir.
film noir, and it just feels like it's shifting because of the existence of Batman and everything. That things are getting more weird. Like hell with Riddler, Yes, he was more modeled after like the Zodiac Killer here, but he did very theatrical things, from
Yeah,
broadcasting his crimes to the dress up to the riddles and everything. Again, yes, I know it was very like Zodiac styled, but my point
but
stands is
yeah, the point is that this is a Batman at the very beginnings of his tenure.
yeah, it's very long Halloween, like the very shift of from the classic mobster, like from Batman fighting the
Where
like
where does where does the detective noir end and the super vigilante begin?
yeah. Hell, like again, then the deleted scene with Joker, I feel like also adds to that.
Yeah, God, I love Barry Coogan's Joker so much. I
It's
I
such an interesting take because it's very, it's very like manhunt,
and mind you, part of the reason why I like it as much as I
manhunter.
do
What I
is
meant.
because I've wanted a version of the Joker that operates a bit like Hannibal for a very long time, and that appears to have been exactly where Matt Reeves' head was with regards to Barry Coogan's Joker.
Like I get it does kind of take. I get the points people have made, why it makes sense, why it was cut. I kind of wish it doesn't because it helps flesh out the world a bit more.
It's such a cool scene. Like we learn more about their dynamic as characters in just that one scene than we ever learned about the Jack Nicholson Joker, for example.
The thing also is like, I'm sorry, a little side tangent here, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, for one thing, it's made mention that it was almost their anniversary by the time of the Riddler case happening, right? Which implies that Joker was immediately around year one Batman,
Yeah,
which already opens up.
implies that they were potentially maybe even the first to go at each other, which works both for the dynamic they set up in that scene, but also in the classic, what Heath Ledger's Joker said, and it became sadly ironic. The I think we're destined to do this forever.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish they had a better design for him, but it's not too bad.
But that, but remember that this is Joker when he's in prison. When he gets out, then he can bling himself out with the makeup and the suits and so on. This is a Joker that is still nominally, stuck in Arkham, essentially.
I know he kind of took the role of Calendar Man, and I kind of wish people would really bring Calendar Man back to retrospective of that, but
I'd really like to see the Clock King, if
yeah,
not next, very soon within the Reeves verse, because I really, really like Clock King. Clock King is one of my all-time favorite sort of underrated Batman villains.
yeah. Anyway, we went on.
Yeah,
Um,
moving forward.
uh, okay, James Gunn's DC Cinematic Universe (DCU) is officially making a historic shift to its Batman mythos. Clayface, which hits theaters in October, officially introduces a new corner of the burgeoning superhero cinematic universe, marking fans' first introduction to the latest live-action iteration of Gotham City.
See, at risk of sounding like a broken record, given that we just did the Penguin in a like standalone thing, how much better would this feel if this were the Clayface of the Reeves verse?
To be fair, when it was originally announced, I think it was supposed to be, right?
Yeah, and then they retooled it and retooled it and retooled it because Warner Brothers cannot. Warner Brothers simply cannot catch a break, and B, they don't really deserve to because they keep choosing the single stupidest option of how to accomplish things.
Well, also, like, I feel like that's a good, like, with the Clayface movie,
Yeah.
right? I do genuinely think it's a good bridge between the fantastical side of the DCU as we've seen it so far and Matt Reeves' Batman.
Yeah, because this is where, you start in like a body horror Elephant Man type territory, and then you move to like the Blob or a Invasion of the Body Snatchers or the Thing kind of logic.
Um, you know,
Not
actually,
not to not to sorry, not to interrupt, but
uh,
not to mention this would be good for Batman's character arc, assuming that this takes place after the first movie, because the whole first movie was about the transition from I am an avatar of vengeance to I am a sympathy, like I have sympathy for my villains and so on. Because Clayface is one of those, and I'm mostly going off of BTAS here, obviously, but
uh,
Clayface is one of those villains that really didn't want to be a villain and could have very easily not become a villain if the world didn't twist the knife quite so much.
well, okay, if we're still with like original, like from BTS, obviously, which was Basil Carlo.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. But in the Golden Age version, he was very much a serial killer. And I'm kind of thinking they're leaning a bit towards that with the mix of Basil Corlo's origin as well.
yeah. I think the best way of going about it is to mix the two because again,
I do feel like
if
sorry.
if they had two brain cells to rub together, the idea of watching Gotham become more and more
Unhinged.
upscale and Silver Agey as Batman develops as a character and as he impacts Gotham in the first place, that would make so much
Also,
fucking sense.
also, I'm gonna say this. Sorry, still a side tangent. We'll get back to this because I also have something to say regarding the Clayface thing.
Mhm.
Uh, just something I think I noticed. Um, the Batman 2022
Mhm.
costume looks is a good like reflection of or a mirror no counterpoint to James Gunn's Superman costume
It is. It would be excellent
because
to
they
have
actually
them play
they
off each
have
other.
what I was gonna say is like they both have like it's weird like they have kind of similarities in how they look, but obviously with
Mhm.
Superman it's a lot more slimmer, a lot it's less bulky obviously,
Mhm.
um, but
Despite the fact that Robert Pattinson is a much lankier, skinnier actor, which
yeah.
is interesting.
No, I mean I meant Superman's costume.
Right.
But they just both have very similar like design, like the design language of the two. They seem to like really play
They
off each
could
other.
very easily be made to fit in the same universe.
Yeah,
And what would be really interesting is if the presentation of the visual style changed depending on who the main character was. Like, imagine the corn sweat suit guest appearing in the like aesthetic and art style of the Reeves verse. I think that could be really interesting. And
honestly,
vice versa. Imagine the Battinson suit in a visual language similar to what Soup 2025 did.
very bright. Anyway, uh, Clayface comes years ahead of the DCU's first official Batman-centered movie, The Brave and the Bold, ahead of the Cape Crusaders next solo adventure. Coming spinoff offers a startling new perspective that replaces the iconic superhero in an important facet of the DCU. This could have rippling effects that completely warp fans' perspective of the DCU. But okay, I don't understand. I don't get that because it's still set in Gotham, which to me, everything I've seen of when we saw the teaser right a few weeks ago
Yeah.
for Clayface, it looks very similar to the to Matt Reeves' Gotham, right? Like
Yes.
was I the only one who noticed that, or no?
No, it is very similar, almost to the point where you find yourself asking why in all the fucks did no one just have the conversation with Matt Reeves? But um the other thing is, if we are insisting on there being two different Batman at once, which is a stupid idea and it's probably going to backfire horribly, but I would be in favor of letting Jensen Ackles play Batman in live action.
He did amazing voice work in the Tomorrowverse,
He did,
and plus he just has that face, you know.
and from what we've seen in The Boys with Soldier Boy, he can very easily translate that sort of vibe over to live action.
Plus, okay,
it's
I'm
not
gonna
a
be
case
fully honest.
where
Sorry,
it's not a case where if you switch from animation to live action and back, it will make things weird, because Jensen Ackles is one of those actors who can pull off superhero in live action as well as in animation.
can I also add something to the Jensen Ackles recommendation?
Go ahead.
Given everything we've seen of Dean in the 15 seasons of Supernatural, I think one, he can play Bruce Wayne like how he is with like his Bat family and Alfred, you know, kind of stern, a little stoic, but a little cheeky.
Yeah,
But
because
also,
family was always the main conceit of the Supernatural characters.
right, but he can also play the persona of how fans have dubbed him, Bruce C. Wayne, which is the airhead, Prince of Gotham, socialite.
It's
Playboy.
even better than that when you remember that in the early seasons of Smallville, he basically played the ditzy coach, the like gym teacher vibe.
Yeah,
Jason.
so like, hey, Giant Turtle, good to see you. But for the record, I don't have a problem with Clayface being like our introduction to Gotham City. Honestly, not seeing like the story from the perspective of Batman, I think is super interesting. I mean, we got a lot in the comics and stuff, depending on certain stories, but seeing it actually translated to movies is very interesting.
Yeah, and before Joker Folie do shat the bed, I was all in favor of letting Arthur Fleck Joker be our introduction to this Batman. And honestly, given the visual similarities between Todd Phillips' Gotham and Matt Reeves' Gotham, you could very easily, by way of like the three Jokers, say that the Barry Coogan version is the second Joker, Arthur Fleck was the first one, and then if you want to do like a Joker Jr. or like a Jason Todd or Tim Drake kind of thing further on, that could have worked as well.
Yeah, that still remains one of the most disturbing scenes of the DCAU.
Yep. And also one of the best ones, because Return of the Joker is fucking a masterclass in writing.
We all watched them when we were kids.
Yeah, this is certainly true of the millennial generation and the early Zoomers, which I think is where Brainstormer fits.
Yeah, I'm like in a weird middle ground.
We grew up on like cartoons, kid shows that did their best to treat children like adults in a positive way. Because every child, and I can say this for myself certainly, every child when they're young wants nothing so much as to be taken seriously by the adults in their lives. And back in the day, in the golden age of like action cartoons, Beat has, or the DC animated universe, the Marvel animated universe, Gargoyles, those sorts of, like, the Men of Action universes, like, those shows were kid shows, yes, but they were written with the complexity of serious, like, science fiction or fantasy shows.
I would say there's still shows today. It's just given how streaming services work, a lot of kids don't actually get to really enjoy them. they're actively looking.
there's that, and then there's the tendency of the industry to pendulum swing to the opposite direction
Yeah,
for
that's
all
fair.
the good that's done them. Because, like, is anyone going to seriously make the argument that that Teen Titans Go is better than Glen Arakami's original Teen Titans? Are we going to entertain that as even a remotely valid comparison? And
I'm more drawing comparisons of like the Dragon Prince or
right, obviously there are still stuff in the like action cartoon mold, but very often they're either like also rans, i.e., they're not really focused on at all, or they're pitched at adults like Invincible, and thus miss.
to be fair, that was how it kind of worked with the comic as well. It was very much a
Well, yes, but what I mean is, you could easily have done a version of Invincible in the same vein as the DC animated universe, as the Man of Action universe, and it could have still worked.
no, yeah, that's I agree. I agree. Speaking of Man of Action, Dynamite's actually publishing a rebooted Ben 10 comic.
I've heard good things about it, but I'm beyond sick of them rebooting Ben 10.
I just think really they gotta like lean into a lot of the ideas of the original series had and kind of just logically follow them from there.
Yeah, I really, I know I'm a broken record on this, but I really wish Omniverse never existed. I wish it had ended with Ultimate Alien, so that we then, like 10 years on or 10 years later, could have come back to maybe a Ben 10 Jr. type show where like Ben has become Ben 10,000 and he's now like passing the torch to Ken or something like that. Like the Ben 10 equivalent of a Batman Beyond would be really interesting.
Anyway, Clayface officially introduced DCU's Gotham City.
Bless you.
Thank you. 37 years after Tim Burton and Michael Keaton redefined DC's most popular superhero in 1989's Batman, the DCU is about to change everything about how it addresses the Caped Crusader.
Okay, you guys are morons. Because speaking as a millennial
Hey,
who
Can I?
almost wore out his copies of the two Tim Burton Batman movies on VHS, you guys are morons, because for an entire generation of humans, Conroy is more Batman than Keaton is. Now, mind you, it's very obvious to everyone, right down to the music, that BTAS is on some level supposed to be a continuation of the Keaton movies. That being said, however, there have been dozens of animated and live action Batmen since the Keaton verse. And two, even insofar as you want to say that the Keaton verse is the definitive, I'm just gonna go right out and say it. Kevin Conroy wore that cowl for longer and did much more for the character and the world building of that universe than Keaton did. As did Mark Hamill do a much better version of the Joker than Jack Nicholson did. No offense to Jack, but he was playing himself too much. He did not disappear into the role like he should
have. Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
Okay. With Clayface, DC Studios introduced the iconic location of Gotham City from a different perspective than any other Batman-centered franchise. Okay. Yeah, there have been entire comic series that are told from the perspective of other like characters in Gotham.
Yeah,
like Gotham Central, which was Can I?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Gotham Central, which was the Well, it was basically like Law and Order set in Gotham from the perspective of the GCPD.
Yeah, it's not. It's also not like we haven't gotten dozens of different Bats and different Gothams since the DC animated universe. Like, don't get me wrong. May I be struck by lightning right here and now if the DC animated universe Paul Dini Bruce Timm era is not the definitive version. But we've gotten the Batman from Kids WB, we've gotten Brave and the Bold, we've gotten the Jensen Ackles era, and in live action, meanwhile, we've also gotten both Affleck and Bale. You're treating this as though there have not been any new versions of Batman since BTAS, and alas, no. Would I be interested to see into such a universe? Because that would be really interesting if there were that long a gap between the versions of Batman. But we don't live in the world where there was the Paul Dini Bruce Timm era and nothing else. Kind of wish it would, because I think it'd be interesting. But no, we've had dozens of different Batmen and their respective Gothams since the Paul Dini Bruce Timm era.
Historically, the world of Gotham and its colorful cast of characters has always been presented from the perspective of Bruce Wayne himself. Yes and no.
That's not true either.
Well, I mean, again, from previous Batman movies, because I feel like that's the reference they're making here. Sure.
But even then, in terms of movies, we've gotten, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. So even then, it's not true. And we've gotten the Penguin. So, like, yeah, the entire premise for this argument is fucked.
Moving on, or
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The upcoming release of Clayface confirms that the DCU is taking a villain-centered approach to its Batman stories that allow for more creative exploration than previous franchises. Okay, like Don brought up, Joker. Also, Dr. Phosphorus from Creature Commandos. His episode that touched on his backstory showed Batman to be a terrifying, shadowy figure, which I am sure how most criminals in Gotham view motherfucking Batman.
Yeah, because that's the whole conceit of his character. The whole conceit of his character is Bruce essentially wanting to be a vigilante cryptid in the minds of the criminals of Gotham, because, to use the Golden Age quote that has never gone out of style, criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot, so I shall make fear my weapon. Also, even in BTAS, which appears to be the last Batman-related property that the person who wrote this was familiar with, heaven knows the size of the rock they've been living under for that long. But even in BTAS, you got, for example, the Poker Night episode. You got the Harley and Ivy episode. You got entire villain origin story episodes like Clock King, like Heart of Ice, etc.
Death of Batman. Remember?
Yes, the Joker's eulogy episode. Hell, what about Harvey? The one that made the Joker beg. Like, he was the main character for that basically whole episode. Batman barely showed up, like, at the end.
But yeah, it's like that's a false dichotomy there.
Well, it's not even so much that it's a false dichotomy, it's just objectively not true. There have been episodes upon episodes upon episodes of damn near every Batman property since the Paul Dini Bruce Timm era that have focused on specifically the villains, like origin stories and perspectives thereupon. My favorite episode of the Batman, the one from Kids WB back when it was Kids WB, is the Riddler episode where we get that universe's version of the Riddler's backstory, voiced by the same character who voiced Felix Faust in the Paul Dini Bruce Timm era. So yeah, acting like doing the villain origin stories as the central axis is not true in any medium up to and including the very same Paul Dini Bruce Timm DC animated universe that you're talking about here.
Moving on.
Yep.
Okay. Historical. The 2026 film takes the form of a body horror story following rising actor Matt Hagen, Tom Rhys Harries, as his life is thrown into turmoil after an accident leaves his face in the form of malleable clay.
Yeah, going body horror with Clayface makes entire sense.
Honestly, a lot of Batman's villains have body horror like stories.
Well, yeah, it's either body horror like Joker falling into the acid or Clayface, in his accident, or it's mental horror like the ventriloquist, or what the fuck is the doll, the lady that looks like a doll, but looks like an
baby doll.
Thank you. But yeah, it's either it's usually either body horror, mind horror, or a little bit of both. And yeah, it makes total sense to do body horror with Clayface. You want to know how I know? It's because every version of Clayface that's existed since Beat has basically pulled that card. It is the correct card to pull, don't get me wrong. And we already know that villain origin story type movies, cough cough Joker, can do really, really fucking well. So yeah, sympathy for the villain, villain-centric origin story, it makes sense, and it's at least as old as Beat has. It's probably even older than that. That's just the furthest back my brain defaults to, because millennial.
Sorry. And again, I think, introducing Batman through the eyes of one of his villains in the DCU, I think is a really interesting and honestly one of the smartest choices that is being made. If he is to show in this movie, because it wouldn't make sense given that it's showing that that Clayface is kind of acting as a bit of a slasher in it from the teaser we had seen, right? Because he's getting revenge on the people that fucked up his face.
And weaponizing the superstition that Batman thrives on. Again, the villains are a superstitious, cowardly lot thing. Having him basically be the quasi supernatural MacGuffin, or at least presented that way according to the criminal underbelly of Gotham. Because that's the thing. The thing with Gotham is an open air shithole, for lack of a better word. Crime runs more rampant there than it does in third world Venezuela type places. So in order to make the worst of the worst criminal scum that runs Gotham under normal circumstances fall in fucking line, he does need to scare them. He does need to be the biggest boogeyman on the block, because that's what's going to inspire those criminals to get in fucking line cut.
Right. I know you're not the biggest fan of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. Obviously, I agree, but
yeah,
the how they described what he was trying to become as Batman, something primal, elemental.
Yeah, there were certainly things in the Nolanverse that worked, because otherwise, they wouldn't be what they are. And hell, I think Christopher Nolan, at the very least, adapted the superstitious cowardly lot speech in the scene where Bruce is making the batarangs for the first time, and I can't remember who asked him. Was it Lucius or was it Alfred? Who
Alfred.
asked him why bats, Mr. Wayne? And he said, "Bats frighten me, and I want to give that fear in turn." Which is
It's time my
basically
enemies share my. It's time my enemies share my dread.
yes, like use the cowardly lot speech without using the cowardly lot speech is basically what that amounts to. So yeah, focusing in on that from another character's perspective, treating the Batman almost like the psychological thriller equivalent of a cryptid works. Moving on.
Yeah. Plus, I've seen people. I've seen like a fan edited trailer of that. I've seen people actually do like concept art for that kind of pitch because it's such. Honestly, it's like the ground zero of fan pitches mostly.
Yeah, and if Todd Phillips didn't apparently hate his own success and hate the very audience that made him successful, he could have done something like this in 2 and 3 of Joker, but he despised his fan base and his own success, and so crashed and burned. Many such cases.
Clayface, the opening salvo in what will most likely barrage of Batman-centered projects in the burgeoning cinematic universe of DCU. It comes from the upcoming Batman solo film, The Brave and the Bold, marking the first exploration of Gotham City and its cast in the franchise. While some theories claim that the film could have a secret Batman cameo, nothing official is confirmed on this front. Okay, if it's set in Gotham, it's Clayface, who is a major villain for Batman.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fucking reason why there wouldn't be a Batman.
Yeah, and honestly, building up people's anticipation and actually waiting to show off their version of Batman by doing it from the villain's perspective first, that's one of the smartest ideas the Gunverse has had so far. So if they don't actually do it, I'm going to be annoyed. Because it will be once again a confirmation that no matter who's in charge of Warner Brothers' take on DC, they just don't understand and they don't care to understand the IPs that they're working with. Granted, if Supergirl underperforms like many people expected to, we may be stuck in yet another case of Warner Brothers desperately trying to course correct every 5 fucking minutes because they can't let things breathe for long enough to build actual world building.
Audio 4 training.
Yep. All right. Hold on.
Yep.
Okay. If Batman doesn't appear in the film, Clayface will officially get an entire movie to himself before The Dark Knight even shows up in the DCU. Again, it makes no sense why he wouldn't. Again, and you don't have to like change the perspective of the movie to fit him or anything. Like you just, again, if you stick with him being the elemental primal boogeyman of Gotham for criminals, that works. That's fine.
Yeah, make him a superstition. Make him the kind of thing. And to be fair to the Tim Burton ones, we see that aspect played through in the first in the first Michael Keaton Batman movie, where the two random schmucks, like the two random guys that may or may not work for the mob, are sitting and talking, and one of them mentions the Batman, and one of the cynical one is going, what do you mean the Batman isn't real? And the other one obviously freaking the fuck out because he thinks the Batman is real. And then of course you get what is probably the best Batman shot in all media ever, which is the shot where you see Batman like descend on them, his cape almost acting like bat wings, and then when the two of them fucking start pissing themselves in terror, he picks one of them up and and he's battling "What the hell are you?" And he responds, "I'm Batman." That is probably still like there have been many, many great Batman scenes in all forms of media, but that's probably still gotta be in the top 10 Batman moments ever put to any medium ever. And it successfully conveys what Christopher Nolan's version focused on a lot more in Batman Begins, and what I would highly recommend they do here, which is take that speech that is basically Batman's entire mission statement from the Golden Age comics, and use it for the basis. Now, mind you, you don't necessarily have to have him be revealed in the movie. If you want his contributions to be kind of indirect and shadowy, like the Batman should, you could reveal the Batman in like a post-credit scene. That would probably be pretty effective if you do want to give Clayface like top billing and keep the movie to himself. Now that we have this zeitgeist where post-credit scenes are in almost everything.
Hey, sorry, I had an idea how like you could pitch it, right?
Mhm.
Because my general idea is Batman's kind of the antagonist.
Yeah.
Not the villain, mind you, because those are two very different things, actually.
Right. Yeah. He's the thing that goes bump in the night for the criminals of Gotham.
Yeah, but kind of a weird pull. I am sure a lot of people here should remember Gotham because I think it was actually like the first thing we ever discussed or talked about when we started.
It is, yeah, one of the first things we ever talked about on this show.
Yeah.
Back in the pilot, back in episode 1. Holy hell.
2019.
Yep. March of 2019.
But for the most part, they kept Batman in complete shadow, silhouette, like do silhouetting, just have him like you don't have to have him talk or anything really. Just like, to be fair, I would love to see an ending scene very similar to Feet of Clay.
Right. Yes. Obviously.
Oh my god! Like imagine, to be fair, that would be pretty fucking horrifying in live action, even more so than it was in the cartoon, mind you. But holy shit! I mean, granted, yes, Clayface is R-rated, so that it would be fine to do that scene.
They're fine to go as bonkers body horror psychological trauma as they want, basically.
I mean, to be fair, didn't that scene fuck you up as a kid? I realize you're a lot more fucked up in the head than I am, but still.
I don't think that one did, just because I don't think that one came up on reruns very often.
That's fair.
What I'm saying is, I'm old enough where reruns were the main source by which you got to re-experience things.
But it's a memorable and impactful scene.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there's a lot of really great moments like that in the various villain-centric origin story episodes of BTAS. It's one of the reasons I fucking love BTAS.
If they don't do that scene or do something of equivalent to that scene, it does not get a point down for me.
Because
it's just
unfortunately, because again, Warner Brothers can't seem to get their shit together. I'm worried that we're doing that thing where we write what things should be and very easily could have been if anyone had common sense, but they might not actually do it.
But I'm saying like that, the ending of Feet of Clay. It's Feet of Clay, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think summarizes the whole tragedy of Clayface as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why it is the most referenced, and well, to be fair, that's just like a lot of BTS like kind of thing. But
yeah, they were so definitive that they just were the correct answer for the majority of.
Take into account Mr. Freeze, who before Heart of Ice was just your standard typical like just silver
scientist character.
Yeah. I mean, granted,
Whereas, yeah, go ahead.
I would love an evolution of the character now. Like they kind of started to do that with New 52, where Nora got out and gained ice powers, and like the dynamic change there with Mister Freeze and Nora.
To be fair, if they do that, they're gonna have to do a lot of work to make it not horrifyingly cringy.
Metahuman gene, I suppose, but I do agree. And there have been times, it's like I think for one thing, it gives a little agency to Nora as a character, which I am for.
I
You know,
mean, if you put a gun to my head and tasked me with basically doing for Mr. Freeze what Todd Phillips did for Joker, I would essentially make it a medical drama. Where you see Mr. Freeze basically go on the same psychological downward spiral that Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman goes through in Batman Returns, but have him go through it because, Nora is terminally ill, and basically have him almost go on a Frankenstein type arc where he becomes so one-dimensionally obsessed with saving her that he, violates the natural order and so on, and then you can build slowly build the downward spiral of the tragedy of Victor Freeze. And you can even have him, or rather have her, kind of be his anchor to humanity, in the same way that, this is going to be a weird poll, but in the same way that when in Netflix's Castlevania, when they were burning Lisa at the stake, she was trying to get in touch with Dracula by telling him, if you can hear, be better than them, they don't know what they're doing. Imagine that, where like Nora gets mildly horrified by what's happening to Victor because of her dying, and her trying to convince him to not go to quite as extreme lengths to save her, but it gets to the point where she's basically on her deathbed.
Actually, now you bring it up, I think Arkham Knight did this in a DLC where they kind of end their story, where Nora was taken out of the cryo chamber, and she and Victor kind of sailed off to spend the last of their days together because there was no cure for her disease that Victor could find.
Another slightly more wholesome way of doing something like this, in terms of this idea. Do you remember the first Matt Smith Christmas special for Doctor Who?
That was the Christmas Carol, right?
The one with Michael Gambon in the like Scrooge-esque role.
Yeah.
Basically same concept as that, but obviously with several more layers of tragedy and almost almost like soap opera-esque medical drama.
Giant Turtle asked. So with Nora dying, Freeze didn't really see a way. Well, it's implied. They don't really specify, but given that Nora would have died within days after being out of the cryo, it's implied that Freeze basically took off his like cryogenic suit, which was keeping him alive, after Nora dies, so he could pass with her. Again, that's in the Arkham Knight video game.
Lots of layers of sympathetic tragedy to the Heart of Ice. Obviously I'm a millennial, so I'm always going to be biased in favor of BTAS and in favor of the Paul Dini Bruce Timm DC animated universe, but there is a reason why the like writing and backstories from BTAS have become the definitive correct answers, in the same way that Joker's backstory from Todd Phillips' version is basically now the default answer, because it just captures the spirit and the soul of everything on such a profound and intricate level. You know, if you can't beat them, join them, and nobody can beat the writing of BTAS
Yeah.
because it's just what they got it right. They got it right the first time, and it worked.
Again, though, I kind of wish they could. It was briefly touched upon, I believe, in the New 52, but maybe they could do something a little better of like bringing, you know, Nora out of the cryo and seeing what Victor's become and all that. I mean, they kind of did have done that in. They did that in B test. It was kind of like a side story, basically,
Yeah,
where she was cured, and she kind of had to move on because Victor was kind of bound and everything to like, and started to lose his humanity and
the
everything.
short version of what's going on here, and this just occurred to me. I can't believe it took me this long to figure this out. This is a version of Frankenstein where Victor is both the doctor and the creature. And Nora is basically taking up the Bride of Frankenstein route.
You know, I actually wrote a version of this for my DC Ruby project that I've kind of abandoned by now, so I feel okay with talking about it. I had a general idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about it briefly. Obviously, I'm just we'll get back to this. But since we're on this topic, um, so the general gist here was, for one thing, it's set for people who are fans of Ruby who know stuff or general knowledge. So no offense, Dalton, you're going to be kind of out of the loop here.
Mm-hmm.
I have Batman set in Mantle, which is a subsidy of Atlas, which is in kind of the far north of the world of Ruby, or Remnant as it's called. Um, well, the design of it is very industrial and very like like it's supposed to kind of sort of be New York. At least that's how I saw the designs of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I made kind of so that's why I put Batman there. Anyway, the Mister Freeze and so the general idea there was similar thing happened, but instead of it just being one man, it's the scientist and his wife, who's also a scientist, and they get kind of forced to be cryogenic beings that are forced to be stuck in this room, um, out of desperation and to bring justice to the guy who was, again, like I've said, I'm following kind of Heart of Ice, but I'm adding my own interpretation to it.
Mm-hmm.
Constructs a suit so he could be able to leave it without dying, right? But he gets captured, and so his wife has to construct her own cryogenic suit as well, and she kind of becomes what Killer Frost. So in this kind of fan continuity, I have a version of Killer Frost and Mister Freeze are together.
And I've known about this for a while, which is why I'm not reacting. But when he first told me about this, I was suitably impressed, as I often am with the way Brainstormer's mind works.
But yeah, ultimately the general idea is like I thought it would have been more interesting if they were both forced to do. So I didn't do Justice League. It was actually supposed to be the GSA because how I had seen Ruby and like all the designs and stuff, I thought it would have fit more with going more Golden Age.
Yeah,
with a mix.
Ruby is more like steampunky Victorian, so
And it's complicated. Honestly, I don't think they had a singular like design motif. But I did have King Shark. Again, it got really complicated real fast. So
and surprising no one, it's better than what Ruby actually did partly because Brainstorm and I are old hands at this redeeming things that are broken sort of shtick. but also because Brainstormer had a lot of really good ideas that I then do what I always do, which is poke them, and large scale world building is the result. Lol.
You're not wrong, but I feel like it was kind of a hodgepodge of various different design styles. Like clearly they were influenced by anime, but like the architecture and technology seemed to borrow elements from like, well, I don't know. Every time I see
Futurist, steampunk adjacent.
it, it really depends on. I don't know. There wasn't like a clear. Hell, even the technology was by wide margins. Never. I don't know. It never really made sense. I'll be honest. Like it confuses me. Even when I can't even like properly explain it.
Brainstormer often feels the conflicted feelings about Ruby that I do about Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. Um.
And yes, we did fix a lot of the world building between the two of us. Yes.
Yeah, I actually am working on like a world building Bible for Ruby. Just kind of, but that's taking time because well, I'm busy with like other stuff. So, but yeah,
He keeps getting new ideas for new things, whether he likes it or not.
also work, and I haven't really felt inspired because, well, I don't know. By the way, I just had the ending that they by Batman counterpart, and yes, they're all supposed to be characters in universe. Like they're not. I'm not like forcing like Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent into.
They've all been Ruby Eyes, essentially.
Yeah, like I even had to look up names that meant because with the naming conventions of Ruby, they you got to do the color, like their names represent colors because color is like a big thing for Ruby. So I literally had for all their names, I really like went down a rabbit hole of like names, definitions, and terms and other like wording for colors to help describe them and stuff. And then I also had to figure out like because actually I'm sorry, it's tangent. I don't mean to do this, but since I'm on it and Dragon Turtle's interested, and I don't get a lot of people interested in my stuff.
Hit the button, folks.
Yeah. Um, Batman was one of the first characters that, well, to be fair, he was kind of actually the easiest to fit into Ruby for me at first. So the general idea is that he, and I will, for the Ruby Bible thing, whenever I get that finished, it's just taking time. I will make sure to post like a Google Doc or some type of PDF in the Discord when I get that done. It's going to be a while, so don't wait with bated breath, Dragon Turtle. I'll be fully honest on that. But Batman who, yeah, no problem. Batman who I named Ritter Schwartz, which I believe in German translates to Night Black or Black Knight. I can't remember the translation. He was, well, he's still rich, but he is a elite of Mantle, which I'm under, which is supposed to be kind of more of a Gotham-like place now. It kind of already was in Ruby proper, but it was never touched on really. So you get to see more of that when I was trying to write the story for that. But the interesting thing is that he is a half Faunus. That his mother was a Faunus and his father was a human. They fell in love. He's a jackal Faunus, like Anubis kind of look, right?
Also, this just occurred to me just now.
Uh-huh.
You kind of made him, Faunus-wise, resemble Ace, the Bat Hound.
Oh yeah, huh? Didn't put that together, but yeah. I'll explain why I made him a jackal Faunus instead of like a bat faunus one because okay, I'll get into that now.
Secret
I did
identity, basically.
what?
You can't really make a secret identity if he's a bat faunus because then it strains credulity.
Yeah, it's also too easy, and so many fan fictions I've seen do it did that. It's like I never like to go with convention often, so but the reason why I made him like I still made him like an heir to basically like a rich family, but also have faunus because I thought I had an interesting dichotomy in the world because he can stand with like the elites of Atlas, bump shoulders with them, but he's not really a part of them. They see him as more like a sideshow attraction. Well, with like the faunus, even especially the White Fang, they don't like him because he kind of represents a somewhat of a selling out of their kind.
Also incidentally, between the two of us, Brainstorm and I did a lot of exculpatory world building for the faunus sort of political dynamics, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. But I just thought that was a very unique thing to do. And again, it does explain why he has the ears that he has, right? The jackal ears. It explains why the ears on his cowl are longer as well to hide those ears as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like one of my just one of the most favorite parts of writing that character was just because again, it's such an interesting dynamic with various actual canon characters. Because how do they react to him? How does he interact with them and all that? It's just
unsurprisingly, my favorite character in the DC and RWBY alt universe that we came up with is Dr. Fate.
Yeah, I really went with I worked with Dalton really hard on that character.
It also helped us fix the lack of magic system in RWBY by actually expounding on things that were established but not really done anything with. Folks, you would not believe how many hours I have sat listening to Brainstormer, and every sentence, every end of sentence out of his mouth was, "This was a thing that they established and then completely did nothing with." It is I was feeling angry by proxy for him because that's just and this is where the parallels between RWBY and Once Upon a Time come in addition to the obvious fairy tale thing that they both have in common. But Once Upon a Time also had a terrible habit of establishing really cool ideas and either making them amount to sweet fuck all or completely contradicting previous shit with the next shit they needed to have happen. It was why one of these days I'm going to press gang Brainstormer into fixing Once Upon a Time with me.
All right, so there's a World of Remnant video where they explain it. What I mean by half faunus is that he is technically like a faunus, but his father is human and his mother is a faunus. So genetically, he is half, but he does appear full faunus. And I think that does from you might need to get closer to your phone, Dalton. Drantrell said you were a little quiet on the last comment there.
Oh, sorry.
Right. But
better?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
Yeah, so technically he is a full faunus, but on a societal level and maybe even cultural level, or hell, even religious, if religion was ever touched upon in RWBY, he is seen as half or lesser, or it's like a discriminatory thing, really.
He's a freak. According to both factions.
A what?
He's a freak.
Yes.
A fluke.
Yeah.
A perversion, according
to Yeah, I would say to like some of the extremists of both sides would say he is a perversion.
Didn't we end up creating 2 more Faunus organizations than they actually established by the end?
Um,
Because I know White Fang was originally from Ruby, but I'm pretty sure we added a couple more.
yeah, we added two because it just made more sense on because one group is not going to represent an entire species.
Complexity and nuance, and
Yeah, there has to be. Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah. I'm also really happy because I mean, I'm not. I will say this though, I scrapped making the Joker in this DC Ruby project, mainly because
Because the only idea anyone has for that is Hyena Faunus.
well, no, not even that. It's just he just would have been the Joker. Nothing interesting I would have done there.
Mm-hmm.
So in DC and Ruby, the arch nemesis to Batman is Scarecrow. For a multitude of reasons. Mainly because, given how the Grimm operate, which is focusing on negative emotions like rage, fear, that kind of stuff, it just kind of made sense. Plus, the backstory I wrote for the Scarecrow in this was pretty cool. If I ever get a chance, I'll actually
Also,
I really should.
speaking of fixing the magic system, we did a lot of work on semblances and how they function.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Brainstormer?
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading Dragon Troll's comments there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's fair. Um, Personally, I think it is kind of a complicated thing with faunus genetics. Um, I still think, yeah, I think outwardly they look like regular faunus, but if you were to actually look at them from the base DNA level, it would be like a half and half if they had two different parents. Like, not like if both parents are faunus, they would just be full faunus, but right. Yeah. Anyway,
Speaking of unexplored potential,
where was I? Okay. Da, da, da. Okay, this is a historic shift for DC Studios, which has often remained hyperfixated on Batman as the centerpiece of nearly every franchise in its history. I mean,
yeah, they do overplay Batman consistently.
Let's not forget Grant Morrison's Bat God thing.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be and has been, and I'm sure we will say again, commentary to be made about how Batman basically subsumes the entire rest of the DC universe more often than not.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Fuck, I wish. I'm sorry, you got me going, Janitor, regarding the DC and Ruby thing, because I haven't talked about it in so long. So, things are coming back to me. One of the bigger bad guys in the later seasons of Ruby, Hazel Reinhardt, I kind of made him somewhat the equivalent of Bane, and him having a personal connection to my Batman, kind of. And he's more Bane in kind of archetype, more so than actual iconography. Besides him injecting dust into his body to make him stronger.
Also, speaking of things we actually somewhat fixed the world building on by actually creating world building for it, we did play around with dust quite a bit there.
Yeah, that was actually that was one of my actual I think I pitched the idea first, and then he kind of helped me
as usually happens, you
Yeah.
come up with an idea, I poke it until it flowers into a whole thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, my favorite aspects that we came up with was, in order to make Dr. Fate work, we basically had to add whole new layers to the magic system of Ruby. And
Yeah.
surprising no one, that some of the ideas we came up with for that are just awesome, and I love them.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should get back to
Yeah.
to article things.
Yeah. Now Clayface has the opportunity to shift focus to more characters from the comic books who aren't named Bruce Wayne. Okay, wasn't that the whole point of the DCU under James Gunn? Not so much like not being centered around Bruce Wayne,
But
but
the focusing on the obscure characters, which is where James Gunn tends to shine most.
yeah. If successful, the film could lead to additional villain-centered spin-offs that give audiences a chance to get to know Batman's rogues gallery a little bit better.
Again, are you assuming that hasn't already happened? Because, I mean, Joker was the most financially successful movie of the previous DC paradigm. Granted, Joker's a lot of an easier sell for most people than somebody like the Clock King or indeed Clayface. But again, you're acting as though Batman IP focusing on villains as central characters is new, and ain't. It really ain't. I am 30, and I grew up with the Tim Burton movies and with BTAS, and they've been doing it for at least that long.
Yeah, I'm in this weird like middle ground that I grew up watching. Well, I guess actually the earliest Batman movies I remember watching were the Joel Schumacher movies, and then the Batman 2004, and then the Dark Knight movies, and then Batman Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, it's the generation gap between late stage millennial, which is me, and early stage Zoomer, which is Brainstormer.
It's complicated. To be fair, I remember the cartoons more, like the Batman and Batman Brave and the Bold, which I think were pretty good interpretations of the Batman. Really? For different reasons, obviously.
Yeah, they were very different versions. I did like the Kids WB Batman in that it kind of tried to take BTAS and add like the Nolan verse in, because like I remember like Lucius Fox was referenced a couple of times in the Batman.
Yeah, he kind of made a bigger appearance in like season 4 when they were focusing on the center, not the
Yeah,
center.
and the Batwave was kind of sort of an upgraded version of the sonar tech that was the main MacGuffin in the Dark Knight, obviously.
Well, actually, all that, because the Batman came out in 2004, Batman Begins came out in 2005. So it had at least a year before Nolan's trilogy started.
Yeah, which is why there's more parallels in the latter seasons of the Batman.
Yeah. All right. Batman has always been the centerpiece of Gotham City.
Again, your mileage may vary considerably if you ever paid attention to the last 30 freaking years of Batman-related storytelling.
All right. Clayface is a nearly unprecedented move for DC's Joker. Come on.
Yeah, and Penguin.
Yeah.
Joker and Penguin both.
Well,
exist.
Okay, I didn't say movies. Yeah, never mind. Which has struggled to give the spotlight to any character who isn't named Batman or the Joker.
I give you half a point for that, because yes, while Batman and the Joker are very often the central, villain hero dynamic, a lot of really good episodes of BTAS were for more obscure Like I I ride or die for Clock King because of his first BTAS episode. I'm weird in regards to this, but I liked Clock King's gimmick before he had time powers.
Uh,
Like the idea of him just being that good at timing and efficiency,
uh,
and that basically like an evil version of Phileas Fogg from Around the World in 80 Days has always been more interesting to me than the psychic time power shit.
I agree with your most recent comment, Giant Turtle, but uh, The Brave and the Bold was an homage to the Silver Age comics Batman, which was very campy, very like globetrotting, less dark and
Yeah.
gruff stuff. So, I mean, I get your point, but I think it's just a good interpretation of again that era of Batman.
It's definitely targeted at a much younger audience and a much more like traditional Saturday morning cartoon sort of audience, but
I mean,
yeah,
it did have its episodes and moments, though. It was. I think it was still
yeah, but I mean, in terms of like tone and like art style and shit, it's
chill of the night.
well, yeah, but that was also one of the potential finales for Brave and the Bold. I'm not saying that they never had more interesting writing. Like for example, they did the multiverse arc where Batman and a version of the Red Hood that is the Joker versus the crime syndicate and so on.
For the
But
record, I'm sorry. I just want to point this out. The Earth 3 version of Joker being the Red Hood is better than the Jokester. I don't know who the fuck thought that of that.
yeah, but it was a very very smart thing to do. But yeah,
I'm just saying, like,
regardless of the quality of writing though, it is much more simplistic writing as compared
you know
to
what?
BTAS or the CW version.
I mean, I'm not going to argue there. I still enjoy it though, and because I
No,
think I remember.
I'm not attaching a judgment to the fact that it's simpler or more childish. It just I'm neutrally describing reality here. It's targeted at a younger, more simplistic audience. That's not. I'm not attaching judgment to that. I'm just describing reality.
I didn't say you were. I just said I liked it.
Your reaction was kind of to immediately become defensive, and
No, I was just saying I liked it. I wasn't trying to be defensive or anything.
Okay, DT, question. Did it seem like Brainstormer was being defensive just then? Because it felt like every time I was trying to like neutrally describe Brave and the Bold as simpler or more targeted at a kid audience, Brainstormer was trying to contradict me because it felt to me like he was getting defensive. And just for the record, in case anyone else misinterprets that, no, I wasn't attaching moral judgment to the fact that it's simpler or more targeted at a younger audience. I was just trying to describe the ways in which Brave and the Bold is different from, especially
No,
shows.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I was just saying, like, I still like it though. It's like it's a good show. You know, I think.
There's nothing saying that everything has to be fucking Shakespeare. Granted, on especially their good days, BTAS and the Kids WB the Batman show could very much go there.
I did think it handled the Batman 2004 did handle Clayface very well as well. Like it was a very different interpretation compared to BTAS, but I think it's still an interesting take because it added a different dynamic.
Yeah,
because it kind of mixed Harvey Dent and Clayface together.
a little bit, yeah.
You know, because Ethan Bennett was childhood friends of Bruce, which the Harvey connection, who gets tortured and disfigured by another enemy of Batman,
Mhm.
which is also slightly in. Also, well, depending on what version we're talking about, gets disfigured because of indirect actions from Batman.
Yeah.
Thus causing his transformation to become Clayface.
Mm-hmm.
Or the villain, or a villain of Batman who becomes recurring.
Mm-hmm. I really hope at some point we get a Riddler back. Like, if this does become successful, which again is a complete crapshoot because DC can't they can't fucking plan their way out of a paper bag most of the time when it comes to DC stuff.
Honestly, I'm also thinking that defensive thing is just sometimes how I come across when I'm talking. Sometimes I come across as an asshole when I'm just saying something, not my intention.
Okay, but I would like to see, especially considering that this is supposed to be a different Batman from the Reeves version, I would like to see a version of the Riddler that gets the same treatment as Clayface, because Riddler is another one of those characters that, more so actually the 2004 version rather than BTAS. I relate a lot to the Batman 2004 version of Riddler, because
sorry, some kind of funny came to mind. Let's say if the DCU Batman took a lot of inspiration from the 2004 the Batman series, that would mean that basically all the villains could throw hands with Batman.
Yeah.
So I feel like instead of the guy who did the Flash movie and It to do this movie, do the Brave and the Bold, right? Which I am not on board for any way.
Yeah, I don't know how in the fuck they're gonna do what they plan to do there. I know it's a generational thing, and I know a lot of people younger than either of the two of us grew up with Damian Wayne as default Robin. I still think it's a dumb idea to start with the fourth fucking Robin in the sequence.
For one thing, Damian Wayne isn't as bad. I mean, yes, when he first came out with Grant Morrison,
he's had good storylines now.
I do agree. It's kind of a weird, you're passing by all this history.
You're passing up Dick, Jason, and Tim,
honestly,
and defaulting to Damian.
Honestly, given everything, I'd say go with Tim, because he's kind of gotten the shaft a lot lately in most media.
I mean, yes, that would certainly be a good thing. Also, another reason why starting with Damian doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. A lot of Damian's best scenes in the animated stuff I've seen him in is him playing off of the previous Robins, either Dick or Jason. Unless you're going to have the entire Bat family pre-established.
Well, also, I want to point this out. Since Superman's still so young, we don't get John Kent.
Yeah, obviously you shouldn't get Superboy yet. Frankly, I remain a broken record about this. I think it was a mistake for them to follow up Supes 1 with Supergirl already.
But my point being is the way that Damian has kind of shifted and become better is due to his relationship with John Kent in Super Sons.
So you're thinking of using Connor instead of John then?
Then that's Tim Drake. That's always been his bro ship.
Again, it's there are many logical problems with starting with Damian, unless you're also going to pre-establish that the entire Bat family already exists. Like if Dick is already Nightwing and Tim is already Red Robin, then fine, you can speed run to Damian. I don't know why you're speed running all the way to Damian, but if you've decided that's a thing you need to do, then you need to realize also that some of Damian's best character moments come from him playing off of the other members of the Bat family, because Damian is unique in that he's, and I'm again setting this in descriptive rather than judgy terms, dude's a little sociopath. I mean, he was raised by the fucking assassin cult. Obviously, he's going to be a little sociopath. But the best moments of Damian in the stuff that I've seen him in, which is mostly the animated stuff that ties into Titans and what have you, most of the best moments I've seen with Damian that aren't related to John, are him playing off of Dick, who is the very much more wholesome big brother, or Jason, who is very much the edgy bad influence big brother.
Again, that really depends on what version of Jason we're talking about. But I do agree. That's the general consensus, at least.
Yeah.
Again, honestly, I would be in favor for Tim Drake just because he's a very interesting character and he came in at a point. Honestly, I also feel like that's a good point in Batman's life to really touch upon, because like, think about it. If we have Tim Drake just starting to be Robin at a time where Batman was kind of starting to lose it after Jason's death, which also we get to do under the Red Hood, right?
Would be very characterful for this particular version of Batman, yes.
Yeah. But also we get Young Justice as well if we can't do the Titans. Given the tainted kind of thing with like Teen Titans Go and the Titan series that happened a few years back.
I think the best thing to do there is basically split the difference roster wise between the Glen Origami Titans and the Young Justice show from a couple of years ago.
Well, I was thinking of going more like the actual like comic roster, which is like Wonder Girl, Impulse, Superboy, Tim Drake, Robin. I think there were a few others. Can't remember off the top of my head. I really need to get the Young Justice comic run back then, because I know it's good. I've seen videos talk about how good it is, and I grew up watching the Young Justice series when it first aired. So yeah, I really need to get that comic.
Yeah, generational differences again.
Yeah,
because outside of DC animated universe and the Kids WB the Batman show, I think the first other like DC related thing I saw was Legion of Superheroes. Although I personally love that, especially come season 2 of Legion, they kind of did soft connect it to the DC animated universe, because they had the same voice actor for Brainiac Prime in the scenes where Brainy is accessing his base code, as they did in the DC animated universe. And that's one of those I hope they never clarify whether that was intentional or not, because the headcanon of it being connected to the DC animated universe is just better. It's just better.
I forgot. What was I gonna say? Yeah, honestly, again, I would petition for Tim Drake to be the DCU Robin.
And again, this is me being a bit of a stickler, but I really would prefer starting with Dick and going up, like, because this is the thing. This is another reason why James Gunn's desire to speedrun all the storylines flummoxes me. The whole point of establishing a cinematic universe, or at least one of the major points to do a cinematic universe, is to create something that you can tell multiple decades long stories with. And so speed running to the fourth major Robin out of the gate just makes no sense to me, especially not if Superman's only been around for 3 years.
Yeah, no, I can see how that's an issue. I'm just trying to play the ball where it lies and figure out a way it could more organically fit.
I do think Tim would work better than Damian because you'd still have the dynamics between Tim's Robin and Nightwing or Red Hood. And then you can, whenever the actor they get to play Tim doesn't feel like Robining anymore, then you can introduce Damian, and then you get to see kind of the darker, more mature aspects of that storytelling. Because if you're playing the Damian ball where it lies, there's no easy way to put this. Talia had sex with him under false pretenses and kept the child without Bruce's consent.
I feel like it also needs to be preferenced. For whatever reason, that was a retcon by Grant Morrison within the actuality. Or was it Grant Morrison? I can't remember. But the retcon of Talia joining Bruce.
Yeah.
That was retconned. In actuality, she gave the kid up for adoption.
I do like that storyline because it does, and this is a bias thing for me again. I prefer to think that Bruce Wayne, genuine Bruce Wayne, Batman, he's not the sort of person who can have a normal relationship. So whenever you introduce the idea of a biological son of Batman, it does make sense to have it be in exceedingly fucked up, exceedingly this could only possibly happen to Batman sort of circumstances. Whether it's Terry McGinnis kind of being the ersatz son of Bruce and Amanda Waller, or whether it's, Talia basically pulling an Anissa and going for the good genes with Damian, it does make more sense to me because Batman, he doesn't have to be the perpetual child that a lot of people try to make him into, but by that same token, he doesn't have to be a perpetual child mentally to be fucked in the head. And Batman being such a strange character, it follows that any romantic entanglements he has are going to be a little bit weird and a little bit fucked and a little bit unique.
I'm sorry, I just remembered a funny ass joke relating to this. It's a skit, but in that skit, Superman says, "Is this why your love life is a revolving door?"
I mean,
well, okay, actually, that's in the context.
Batman is the embodiment of the situationship, basically.
Well, actually, okay. To be fair, that is actually in the context regarding an article years ago of Batman not doing a certain thing because heroes don't do that, in air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can look it up if you want. I don't want to say it on stream, but
there's also the thing that they were speaking of DC Animated Universe. I would have liked to have seen where the possibility of Bruce and Diana would have gone, because they were very much, especially in the famous in the famous Am I Blue episode, the Cersei episode of Justice League Unlimited, they were really setting up Bruce and Diana. And if Justice League Unlimited had continued on for another couple seasons, would have been really interesting if Bruce and Diana had a kid and the kid was a son, therefore, triggering the weird, politics of the Amazons.
Well,
I think it would have been a really cool idea.
well, then you gotta take into account Batman Beyond is the thing with all that.
Right.
Because that's never,
Yeah, obviously they didn't actually go that route, and we got Batman Beyond before they could really establish any of that. And honestly, again, talking in terms of who these characters are in particular, I think there's something ironically kind of wholesome about the idea that Bruce and Amanda wind up together in their ersatz situationship fucked up way, because Amanda Waller is another character who, given who she is, like as unique as she is and in the position that she's in, she's not gonna have a normal fucking relationship. But her kind of being the mother by proxy of Terry, that works. And I could even see a world where this would obviously have to be after the epilogue, of course. But I could even see a world where Amanda, after she retires, and old Bruce could kindle an actual relationship in their old age. Because honestly, I think for both Amanda and Bruce, it makes more sense that they would take time to have relationships after their, stint in the sunlight is done, rather than trying to make it work when they're younger.
Well, to be fair, I don't think they generally liked each other much when they were younger.
I mean, in their immediate reactions, not necessarily, but
I'm not saying they couldn't hate fuck.
I don't think I'm alone in seeing a lot of their verbal sparring matches as the closest either of them can come to flirting.
Yeah. Anyway, we aren't done with the article, but I feel like just for time purposes, we'll finish it next week and just move on to the next.
Yeah, we had a greater than normal density of sidebars in that particular article.
Yeah. Okay, Cosmic Book News. Cosmicbook.news. Supergirl Backlash is real. Fan interest drops in latest tracking, written by Matt McGloin, published May 22nd, 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Supergirl tracking has taken a hit. The latest numbers from the quorum shared via Puck News have Supergirl holding at 53% awareness, but interest has now dropped 2 points from 48% to 46%. The quorum tracks movie awareness and interest through audience surveys, giving an early look at which upcoming films people know about and want to see.
I do like that they keep a track on those two things as two different things, because just because you know about something doesn't mean you are interested in it or wanting to support it, because some things you're aware of because they're iconically bad. Cough, cough, Velma, cough, cough. Daniel Kibblesmith's New Year Warriors. I bet you that even people who didn't normally watch comic book trailers had an opinion on Daniel Kibblesmith's New Year Warriors. Based solely on the number of dislikes, there is absolutely no way that only people who normally watch comic trailers reacted to that. Yeah, but it is smart of them to keep track of awareness and interest as two different things. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. The awareness number staying flat is not the worst news for DC Studios and Warner Brothers, but the interest drop is where things get interesting, especially with Supergirl now about a month away from release.
Yeah, it's gonna have an uphill battle, I think. Don't get me wrong, if the movie is good, like if the movie is anywhere as good as the first Wonder Woman movie was, I will eat the proverbial crow. I've always been somewhat skeptical of this movie. I don't think it'll be as bad as either of the Captain Marvels, but I also don't think it will be nearly as good as the Wonder Woman movies. Either of them. That being said, though, this is definitely a case, like with so many instances where I've been kind of the soothsayer of doom for things. I want to be wrong, and I will continue to specify that. Just because I give a negative prognosis for something doesn't mean I am gleefully, rubbing my hands together and hoping that it crashes and burns. If it's as bad or worse than I think it is, then I certainly hope that it crashes and burns. But I am always open to being pleasantly surprised and pleasantly wrong. I was terrified of what they would do to my beloved Dr. Fate in the Black Adam movies, and he was the best thing in the movie and one of the better portrayals of the character, full stop. I was terrified based on what we had heard plot summary wise about Multiverse of Madness. Multiverse of Madness was really fucking good despite some of its more questionable writing decisions. So I am hoping to be wrong when I make negative prognoses. But yeah, if it's as bad as it looks, then fuck it. But if it is good, if it is genuinely really, really fucking good, then I shall eat crow and I shall support this movie. That being said, nothing I have seen in either of the two trailers have really swayed me on this movie likely being mid at best and potentially, albeit on the lower end of possibility, it could be as bad as the first Captain Marvel. I don't think any force on this earth could make it as bad as the second Captain Marvel movie. But yeah, it's gonna have a lot of uphill battles to fight in order to get people to even give it a chance. And that's a shame. It really is. But the kind of drunken, depressed bimbo thing they did in Superman 25 was probably a terrible place to start. And given the ratio of female-centric superhero stories in terms of movies lately, there's one really, really good Wonder Woman movie, one imperfect but still amusing Wonder Woman movie, two terrible fucking Captain Marvel movies, Madam fucking Web, and so on and so on and so forth. So yeah, I maintained that it was stupid to run right from Superman 25 to Supergirl for plot reasons. I still think it would have been smarter if they had waited until even just if they had waited to introduce Kara in the sequel and maybe have the sequel movie focused on him sort of rehabilitating Kara, that I think could have gone even better. But my default answer is still you should have waited until the end of Corn Sweat trilogy and then had Supergirl when he decides he wants to go off into the sunset. But definitely jumping right from Superman 1 to Supergirl was a mistake. And again, I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping this movie is way better than it looked in any of the trailers, and I'm hoping I get to eat crow. But it's a hard sell for either general audiences or fandom audiences because, again, the ratio of successes or failures with regards to female-centric superhero stuff. And unless they pull off something really quite amazing, it's probably gonna end up performing like the mid movie that it kind of looks like. But moving on.
Supergirl previously looked to be in decent shape. The earlier tracking had Supergirl at 53 awareness and 48 interest, which put it ahead of Mortal Kombat 2's 48 awareness and in line with its 48 interest just before release. Now Supergirl's awareness is still at 53, but interest, what matters, has slid to 46. Mortal Kombat 2 has massively underperformed at the box office, and now it may not even hit $200 million worldwide, which is a complete disaster.
This is fucking criminal, by the way. The second Mortal Kombat movie was such a massive improvement on the first one. It does irritate me to no end that Mortal Kombat 2 underperformed, because it was it perfect? No. But it was a massive improvement, and it would have been something very solid to improve upon in the third one. In the same way that, was Multiverse Madness perfect? Fuck no. But was it better than the 2016 movie? You bet your ass. It doesn't have to be perfect to be in a better position than it started out as. And so yes, it does genuinely kind of irritate me that Mortal Kombat 2 basically fell off the face of the earth. Now, mind you, part of the reason for that is because Michael, Devil Wears Prada, and now Backrooms and Obsession are getting really, really, really positive hype, and for very good reasons. But it does make me a little sad that Mortal Kombat 2 got lost in the shuffle, and I really hope that doesn't happen to Masters of the Universe, because I think a lot of the controversies, quote unquote, surrounding Masters of the Universe are somewhat astroturfed, and I have enough faith in Travis Knight that I'm willing to at least see what he does with it. But yeah, I am really rather annoyed that Mortal Kombat 2 got lost in the scuffle, and I'm hoping that it doesn't happen to Master of the Universe. Anyway, moving on.
Alright. The movie's tracking also softened as release approached, which immediately matched what happened in theaters. The drop follows the recent backlash surrounding Amelia Alcock's comments about fans. Alcock previously drew heat for comments about fans, trolls, and online criticism, with some fans taking her remarks as another example of a Hollywood star attacking the audience before a movie's release, similar to Brie Larson and Rachel Ziegler.
Yeah, this is not like this. I blame Warner Brothers marketing for. Dear Hollywood studios in general, do not bite the hand that feeds you. The customer is always right in matters of taste. I don't care if you think the audience are immoral subhumans. If you want to make the money, you get the audience on your side, which in this instance means that if you think the audience are immoral, lie to them. It's better to lie to them in a positive way than to be honest with them in a way that makes them hate your guts. Return from whence you came, Hollywood. 2 things you must learn: not to bite the hand that feeds you, and the customer is always right in matters of taste, whether you like it or not. Moving on.
Alright. DC Studios co-head Peter Safran also came out publicly in support of Alcock. For DC Studios, the public support makes sense internally. Alcock is the star of the movie, and the studio is not going to throw her under the bus a month before release.
They already kind of did. By having her play into the toxic fandom narrative, you kind of fucked yourselves a bit. Now, mind you, if the movie's good, that might not matter. Like, I remember Cynthia Erivo said some really stupid shit prior to Wicked 1 coming out. But Wicked 1 was so good that it didn't really amount to anything. But given that the most you can really say for Supergirl is people that don't really have a vested interest in hating it just kind of feel meh about it. Like it's the definition of mid. Starting from a place of really, really good adaptation, like Wicked did, is one thing. But starting from a position of mid, do not attack your fan base. Hollywood needs to learn to stop themselves. And again, I don't care if you genuinely believe in toxic fandom and genuinely believe in toxic masculinity and all that shit. For the good of your fucking bottom line, studios, if you can't say anything nice with sincerity, lie. Lie like you've never lied before. Because it's better for your bottom line from a practical standpoint. Fuck morality. From a practical standpoint, you as the studio that financially backs the movie need to ingratiate yourself as much as possible to your fan base. Better still would be shutting the fuck up and letting the movie speak for itself on its own merits. But if you're going to speak to your audience, TM, then you need to make your audience potentially like you. And if you can't do that sincerely, that worries me and annoys me. But if you can't do that sincerely, then the compromise I'm willing to reach with you, Hollywood, is you can't sincerely see the value of your audience, then lie. For your own good, fucking lie. Because no matter how genuinely you believe in toxic fandom and genuinely believe in toxic masculinity and fandom entitlement and blah 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 blah, if you can't say anything nice sincerely, then lie or say nothing at all. The best scenario is cases like the director of the Sonic movies, who genuinely does seem to genuinely regard the fan base as a positive. People who are sincere about that kind of stuff will always succeed more. But from simple pragmatism, if you can't say anything nice and mean it, then say something nice and lie. Or say nothing at all and let the movie speak for itself. Either of these other two options are better than playing the toxic fandom controversy card. Especially if you're starting from a position of meh. Moving on. Brainstormer. Hello. Testing. Brainstormer. I am guessing he assumed I would be ranting for longer and stepped away for 5 seconds. Brainstormer.
I'm back.
Okay. Hello.
I literally said I'd be right back.
Oh. I did not hear.
You need hearing aids, old man.
Possibly true, although my hearing has always been my best sense. It's why I often got in trouble for eavesdropping as a child.
Yeah, somehow that doesn't surprise me, you nosy little bastard.
Guilty as charged. I am nothing but what I am.
I also feel like you just crave drama or to know drama.
Believe me, if you... I don't think I've told you about this, but I will tell you about this now. There were frequent dramas that I needed to be in on in order to survive growing up. My mother and my stepdad were bad medicine for each other for a very long time.
I get that. I get it. From the outside, though, it is not a great look when the movie is already dealing with a fan pushback and interest is not moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Girl sorry.
Go ahead.
Supergirl still has time. The movie opens June 26th, which gives DC Studios and Warner Brothers about a month to build interest and get the marketing moving in a better direction. Recent promos seem to be leaning more on Cornsworth's Superman and Jason Momoa's Lobo, which might be the right move. Superman gives the movie a direct connection to the larger DCU, while Lobo brings in a fan-favorite character who can help sell the film to skeptical comic book fans.
Is it probably pragmatically the right move? Yes, but someone really should have asked themselves, if we have to sell a Supergirl movie on the strength of Superman and Lobo, then was making a Supergirl movie this early really a smart move?
I mean, again, I think the main issue is, again, it's a similar issue with like the DCEU, where it's somewhat touting itself. The DCU is touting itself as somewhat of an established universe.
Yeah, it's trying to speedrun things again.
Yeah. Although, like, I like Jason Momoa, and he's not bad as Lobo.
Him as Lobo, I have absolutely no doubt will be amazing because.
But I can think of another actor who actually did kind of play Lobo, who I can see playing live action.
Okay.
Is it Brian or Ryan? Hold on. Yeah, Ryan Hurst.
Where would I know him from?
He's been in a few things. He was Beta in Walking Dead, like the second in command of the Whisperers. He played Thor in God of War Ragnarok.
Okay, I think
who is going to be playing Kratos in the God of War TV show. And he voiced Lobo in Superman Man of Tomorrow. Hell, even like just, I mean, he's 6'6", and on general print, he looks like Lobo.
That is certainly the physicality that Lobo should have. Yes.
But yeah, he has like he has long hair and a beard. He looks like Lobo without like the white face paint.
Between what makeup can do and what visual effects can do, this should be relatively easy.
Plus, he just has the voice for it, I'd say, more so than Jason. No offense to Jason Momoa, obviously. It's just like,
I am glad that we get to keep Jason Momoa, and honestly, while his Aquaman was very good, I do think Lobo fits him better in terms of both his personality on and off the screen, but also kind of his brand, for lack of a better word. But I remain skeptical of, I mean, DC already made the mistake of trying to speedrun the world building in BVS, and it backfired horribly. And I have seen nothing so far to convince me that this is not going to backfire horribly on them anyway. Again.
I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I think when I was working on my DCEU rewrite, because yes, of course I was working on something like that. I think I didn't finish it, but I got a good amount of it done for my BVS, because I was kind of keeping everything in what was released, but obviously just reworking it all to make it more coherent and fit.
Well, this is the thing with Warner Brothers and their relationship to DC. They don't understand why DC works. They don't understand what DC is. They just know that it makes money. Like superhero universes make money. And I'm sorry, but if you don't understand what you're trying to sell, no wonder trying to sell it always backfires on you. Because if you don't understand what your product is, how in the fuck are you supposed to convince people to buy it? And this is the problem DC has had since Man of Steel. They want to get to the finish line before they've even reached the starting post. And no one on the writing staff, or indeed in their corporate suite, knows how to actually build a world that makes consistent logical sense. And their lack of familiarity with their own product leads to an uncertainty with regards to their product, which results in the biggest mistake that DC has made since Man of Steel, which is every time something goes wrong or underperforms relative to what we want it to perform to, we need to blink and change everything about the IP so that the next movie will have a completely different tone than the previous one. Like when BVS failed to make $1 billion, they blinked. Like, or actually, no, it goes back even further than that. When Man of Steel made less money than Doctor Strange, they blinked. And then when BVS failed to make $1 billion, they blinked again. And when Suicide Squad underperformed relative to what they wanted to do with that, they blinked again. Now, mind you, some of the time when they've blinked, it's benefited them in the cases of like Aquaman, the Shazam movies, Black Adam, etc. But every time every single movie doesn't perform like The Dark Knight, they blink. And it's gotten to the point now where they've blinked so often, nobody knows what the fuck is going on anymore, and neither do they. Like for example, for as much as the reception for Superman 25 was better, it made less than Man of Steel did 13 years and like 4 fucking paradigms of inflation ago. So even when they're getting a positive reception, they don't even manage to beat their previous thing that underperformed so badly they had to blink. So how many more times are you going to have to blink before someone raises their hand and goes, "Oi, what if we actually took our fucking time trying to understand our product so as to create a cohesive universe from it?" I know, and Brainstormer always gives me shit about this, that the idea of letting an entire IP rest for a decade, I know my plan, which would have been wait until 2038 and basically do a Golden Age universe from scratch, probably would never work because Warner Brothers doesn't want to let the IP sit idle for that long. But jumping from the latter parts of the DCEU, which, by the way, were mostly crippled by your own friendly fire because you rushed to the Gunverse so quickly, but jumping from Black Adam all the way to Superman 25 so quickly nerfed you horribly. Because a lot of people, present company very much included, were still salty about how you shortchanged Henry. And had you waited, like even assuming that you couldn't do the full 10 years, which is what I would advise you to do, because then you can start a Golden Age universe from scratch, which Marvel cannot replicate because Marvel didn't really become the top dog until the Silver Age, and it would have led you to creating a Superman movie on the 100th anniversary of Superman, which would have been great for PR. But more than that, even assuming that my 10-year wait your fucking turn plan or 12-year wait your fucking turn plan wouldn't be feasible because we can't let the IP sit idle for that long. Even if you had just done half, like 5 to 7 years, would have been long enough for people to let go of the shortchanging of Henry Cavill, would have been long enough for you to actually plan your universe out ahead of time rather than rushing from one forest fire to another.
Hey, Don.
Every 5 minutes. And it would have led you to have time to understand maybe a little bit better of what worked for your opposition. Because DC has been trying to basically replicate what the MCU did for DC since Man of Steel. And that could work in theory if you ever took the spare time out of your day to figure out why did the first 3 phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe work, and not to to my own horn here, but the very simple reason why phases 1 through 3 worked was because they took the time to understand their IP and figure out ways to make these various IPs fit together and thus build a long-term metric for storytelling. Every time DC has done it so far, whether it be the DCEU
Jonathan?
with Man of Steel through Black Adam, or whether it be the Gunverse, which we're currently, sitting in the nascent period of, they keep trying to speed run past all of the important shit, which is establish your universe, establish your characters, make people give a damn about the universe you're creating before you try to flash forward to all the work already being done. You can't speed run certain things. Some things you need to take your fucking time, and even more so, take your fucking time before you roll camera, so that you have an idea where you're going before you actually get there. Moving on.
You're good.
Yes.
Okay. Problem is, the movie is called Supergirl, and the lead character still has to be the draw. If the studio needs Superman and Lobo to do the heavy lifting, they raise the question about whether general audiences are excited about Kara herself or really anyone else. I mean, to be fair, look, Kara is a good character. Is a very interesting character when she's written well. And I would be for this movie. However, I think the issue for me is less to do with Millie Alcock and her whatever is going on, because I don't know. I don't pay attention to that. And I'm going to be honest. I don't even agree with Dalton on this being too soon. I think the main issue is the story that it's adapting, which is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, I believe, which I've heard is a good comic. Hold on. The thing that kind of bothers me, well, for one thing, is just because I'm not the biggest fan of Tom King, and that's who it was written by. So that kind of turns me off a bit. But also, it just doesn't really feel, how to say this,
earned.
I'm not even going to go that far. Well, that's not where I was going with that. It doesn't feel... Honestly, I'm going to be honest. It doesn't really feel like Kara's the center of this. Now, granted, in the comic, it's not even told from the perspective of Kara. It's told from the perspective of the girl with the sword that we've seen, which is okay. But I don't know. I don't feel invested.
It doesn't feel like they're telling the story because they're really excited to tell a Supergirl story. It feels like we need any excuse to build our new universe, and Supergirl is a convenient bridge, so we'll use her for one. It's the same problem with the file scene in BDS, where Diana is, going into LexCorp and, getting all the files on all the other metahumans. That scene does not feel like it exists because anyone on the creative side is interested in telling that story. It feels like the studio went, we need to speed run so we can keep up with Marvel. How do we most effectively do that? It doesn't feel, it's more than just the audience not giving a fuck, which I do think is genuinely an issue. It also feels like the creative side, the directors, the writers, are basically running on autopilot. And maybe in the very earliest days of like phases 1 and 2, you could argue that the superhero genre can kind of be done on autopilot because it is the new fresh thing. But in 2026, after even the MCU has rubbed a lot of people sufficiently the wrong way that they're kind of just feeling tapped out now, you can't just do the bare minimum and expect to get major results. If you want a story the audience is willing to come out for, you have to make it feel as though this is something that the creative side actually wanted to produce. And it just doesn't feel that way. It feels very much like everyone is just kind of going through the motions. And at this particular stage in 2026, you can't afford to be just going through the motion. You have to make people give a fuck. And if you can't make people give a fuck, then you need to find a project that your creative team can get invested in so that maybe some of that investedness can carry over to your audience. Moving on.
All right. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let's do the trailers.
Yep.
Okay. Give me 1 sec. Get those. Okay, sorry, it's took a minute there to load.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I suggested this mainly because I didn't think Dawn was going to agree to us to watch this.
Mm-hmm. Did we ever actually do the Wildwood trailer?
No, we didn't. I think I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't want to tempt that thing again.
Oh, because of the copyright thing.
Yeah,
Of all the things to get us a copyright strike, especially given that we were basically promoting the thing pro bono.
I honestly,
We were,
I don't even think it was Leica. I'll be fully honest.
yeah, it was probably one of the automated bot things, but it's just funny to me that for all the vitriol we've spilled in the direction of like the Mary Sue, for all the negative press we gave to Daniel Kibblesmith's New Year Warriors, stuff like Velma, stuff like Rings of Power, for all of the vitriol we've targeted at so many things, we got copyright dinged for something we were basically simping for pro bono.
Yeah, but if anyone wants to see like there's a new Wildwood trailer. Just type Wildwood into YouTube search bar, and you'll see it. It came out about like 2 or so weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah. Because we've
It's
been
really
planning to do it for about 2 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, it's a really good trailer though. I would recommend watching it.
Everything Leica has produced is fucking amazing. Like they
What
at this
record?
point have a higher success rate than
Pixar.
Prime Pixar did. Because yes, it's true that that Leica has only made 4, now 5 things, but every single one of those 5 things has been a classic to varying degrees, which I don't even think you can say that for Prime Pixar.
For the record, we are going to be doing a review of that. That is non-negotiable for us.
Oh yes, that is definitely going to be a thing.
I
And
just
like I
gonna have
said,
shit.
I would be very surprised if it doesn't turn out to be a classic in the making.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to convince someone to go watch it with me.
Oh, that's right. There are people in your life that don't really regard animation very highly.
Well, I mean, I once told him I wanted to go see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and he said he was interested in that. So I don't know. It's complicated. It's complicated. I'm not entirely sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Anyway.
hard. It's hard to guess, but yeah. Yeah, this X-Men 97 season 2. I had seen, like one of those like leak videos where like someone's at a convention seeing it and they record it on their phone. I saw it. It's pretty much the exact same trailer, so they didn't change anything with it. So
Yeah,
almost
genetically modified banana.
It's hard to believe what's not waiting for me. Someone I lost. Someone special.
Yeah, it only took you watch him dying violently to realize how much you love him, even though you were fucking with a really old dude.
Yeah, like that is the primary thing that was kind of fucked about the first season. Like X-Men 97, I don't think is quite as good or as well written as the original, X-Men animated series, but it certainly was very, very good. All except for Rogue's Magneto Simpery.
I mean, look, I understand that they had a thing in the comics, which again is super weird to me given the age difference.
Yeah, there are many layers of wrong in that storyline.
Okay, well, to be fair, Rogue was a villain, and villains always have this weird thing where they kind of can break convention and norms in that way.
Mm.
It's still weird and fucked, but
yeah,
somewhat tolerable, I guess.
Like there was much good about the first season of X-Men 97, but the Magneto Simpery of Rogue, just that, especially because she was basically friend zoning my boy Gambit there. That's there are many things wrong with the.
Well, look, it's from Rogue's perspective, I kind of get it because Magneto's really the only person she can have a physical contact with.
Yeah, because he can protect himself with the electrical field around him.
But I don't know.
I feel like there's probably ways that okay. This is just my brain doing that thing I do where I think through in-universe implications. If Gambit was wearing gloves, rubber surgical gloves, and he channeled his concussive energy into those gloves, would that not effectively be the same thing as what Magneto was doing with his thing?
I'm not entirely sure, man. Because it's kinetic energy, right? He's channeling.
I believe so. That's. I'd have to look it up again, but I am pretty sure that that's the thing with Gambit. He charges things up with concussive potential energy. He basically excites the molecules of anything he touches.
I think in recent comics, when Rogue and Gambit got married, Yes, they got married, actually, and they're happily married together.
Mazel tov. Lol.
Well, I don't think either of them are Jewish.
I don't think you have to be Jewish for that to work. But anyway, Magneto actually is, which would be really good if they ever, touched on any of that. But
I mean, they did
that.
that. They did when the writing for the X-Men was actually genuinely good.
This is true. They have done in the comics, and I think even in X-Men 97 they might have referenced it a time or two, or not X-Men 97 the reboot show, but the original 97 X-Men animated series. Although I'd have to rewatch it again to verify that.
Yeah. Again, shall we? Shall we?
Yes, genetically modified banana.
Is it delay when I'm talking, or
No, you're good.
okay? It's just like it took you like a minute there to respond when I asked.
I was moving away a little bit because I heard my cat crying.
Oh,
I needed to
okay,
go and
okay.
feed him.
Sorry.
But
I
genetically
look,
modified
man, I
banana.
have PT. Okay, given all the technical difficulties we have like every week,
Yeah,
it makes me paranoid.
yeah. Knee jerk paranoia. Lol.
Yeah. Anyway,
Genetically modified banana.
The X-Men are scattered through time. In the past, from the start of Apocalypse's reign, to the future at the height of his rule.
The X-Men. I must strike them at their most vulnerable.
I mean, Apocalypse is always X-Men Apocalypse was not great in showing how menacing and powerful he really is. Well, except for the one scene, but that was it, really.
Actually, I think one version of the show that did it really well was X-Men Evolution. Did Apocalypse really well.
Don, could you get closer to your phone real quick?
Yeah, sorry. I said I think one of the better takes on Apocalypse was X-Men Evolution version.
I don't really. I might need to watch it again. I don't really remember him much.
Or was that what I was thinking of? Because I know they didn't get a chance to touch on Apocalypse in Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah, he was teased for season 2 that never
He
came.
was basically the post-credit scene for season 1. I'm trying to think of.
I think the original like X-Men animated series from the 90s.
Is it X-Men Evolution I'm thinking of? Because we actually got to see the pharaonic backstory of Apocalypse.
Okay, that I don't remember. That I remember from Evolution. So,
okay, so I'm not going.
But I don't remember him really having a presence. He was more of an entity, like a figure. He didn't really do like the speeches, to my recollection, at least.
Honestly, I think that works better for him though, because of how ancient and mysterious he is.
Well, he was the leader of an Egyptian dynasty. You figure like he has to do the big speeches. Like he knows how to talk to people. He knows how to like get crowds to his side, form armies and stuff. To be deified, I feel like you have to have a voice, really.
Well, but I mean, also gods being a little bit indifferent is definitely a thing.
That's fair. I'm just again, I still stand by like the casting for Apocalypse for a live action X-Men, especially if we do rebooted.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Judge.
Remind me who that is. Sorry.
Teal'c from Stargate SG-1.
Yeah, I can see him.
Or Kratos from the new God of War games.
Yeah.
He's just got a good enough. He's just got a great voice and and like the presence and physique that I really think if you put him in like the practical, like a more accurate version of Apocalypse costuming, it works. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Genetically modified then.
The 1990s.
Jeez, could have at least bought me a drink first.
I mean, them going through time is actually pretty interesting.
Given how they ended things, it is kind of inevitable that they would start playing with those cards.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, they've had Bishop on the team for a while, and his whole thing was time traveling and stuff, along with Cable.
Yeah, and presumably they're also going to work in Cable as well.
Yeah. No, they do, yeah. Another thing I actually did with the reboot is they kind of touch on Wolverine and Morph and that kind of pseudo couple thing they got going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It feels like I know they're not gonna outright say it, but it does feel like a fairly decent representation of a gay couple.
I mean, I've been saying this for years. I think Scott and Logan should just get together and leave Jean out of it.
I mean, in the comics right now, they have this whole like throuple thing going on,
which I'm sure is poorly written because it's modern fucking Marvel writers, but that concept works. I mean, I know this is me being me, but I often think that the best solution to a love triangle is just throuple. Like if you're that like anal retentive about who should wind up with who, why don't you just all wind up with each other and everybody goes home happy?
Depends. But to be fair, I'm under the assumption like Wolverine will fuck anyone who wants to fuck. I think it's not really much of an issue with him.
I've never really thought about Wolverine's sexuality, which is ironic considering his name is Logan and the first guy I ever had a crush on is also named Logan, but that's a different story for a different day.
Okay. Well, to be fair, again, I'm also basing off like one alternate dimension version of Wolverine was in a relationship with Hercules. So
you're right. I forgot that. I do remember that in the Ultimates comics, Colossus was gay.
yeah,
you can guess why that particular instance remained living rent free in my head for such a long time.
But yeah, Wolverine has always struck me as like bi, possibly pan.
Again, I don't think I've ever really thought about Wolverine's sexuality, but I mean,
well, I mean, relatively recently I've thought about it. I'm just like
something that doesn't often come up even in the original X-Men animated series is how short Wolverine actually is.
Yeah.
He's 5'4". He's definitely in the category of short king.
Yeah, also don't get me started on that whole thing. And like, you know, I talked about it with like the whole Deadpool when they showed the comic accurate. They made it look stupid when it doesn't have to look stupid.
No. He's
Also,
basically a Lord of the Rings dwarf. Like he's short, yes, but he is stocky enough to fuck you up, but good.
Okay, his name is Wolverine. It makes sense that he's short, feral, and a fucking murder machine.
Are Wolverines thought to be small? I always picture them as like the size of fucking wolves.
Hold on.
But good for Wolverine for living out my fucking Hercules fantasy. One short king to another.
26 to 43 inches long. They stand 14 to 18 inches tall at the shoulder.
Which would be like 2 to 3 feet generally. That kind of fucks with my head a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I've always pictured Wolverines to be like the size of wolves.
So my description was accurate then.
Yes, yes. Gaining this new revelation about Wolverines, which to be fair, I haven't really. My documentary phase was more about history than about animals. So like most of what I've seen Wolverines with, has only been like in passing.
Yeah. All right. Genetically modified banana.
Genetically modified banana.
We gotta get the X-Men back to the 90s.
You fight a battle that cannot be won. Against the dawn of an age that cannot be stopped.
This isn't just about us.
You know, the thing I'm always trying to understand, and the thing I kind of feel like is what always holds the X-Men back, well, Marvel Universe as a whole, is that it never really allows itself to evolve past the modern times. I'm using that in air quotes because obviously, you know.
Yeah, the sliding time scale is annoying. Because if they actually let long-standing things be long-standing things, there is so much more you can do with X-Men after their like civil rights era is over.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, given kind of the shift and change, I do think there are still civil rights issues to be addressed today.
Right,
But
and you could very easily parlay that into, as much as this is going to sound cringy. Think about the way that modern social justice movements kind of piggyback off the more legitimacy of the civil rights movement and completely distort and corrupt what they actually were about.
yeah, that's and that could be. But also, like, I bring up. I know again we've had this. We're not like the biggest fans of like the original X-Men movies, but you know, consider X-Men in the early 2000s was somewhat of a was used metaphorically as
Gay allegory.
Yeah. To be fair, X-Men itself has kind of always been a representation of the underrepresented minorities in a general broad speaking, mind you. But
even more fundamental to that, and I think this is another thing that would be allowed to be talked about if they actually let the time scale move forward. Even more fundamental than their like othering or their minoritarian aspect. The X-Men are a quintessential example of the way everyone feels like an outcast during puberty. Like that is precisely what more so than any minoritarian concern, whether it be civil rights, whether it be the gay acceptance, whether it be whatever. Even more fundamental to the X-Men is part of what the X-Men are is a representation of the outcast or persecution aspect of going through puberty. Let he who is without various complexes cast the first stone. And I think if modern day writers weren't quite so politics brained, you could tell a lot of really interesting stories
Well,
with that aspect of the X-Men more so than the minoritarian thing.
Well, I also want to bring this up too, and like the natural evolution of culture and systems and just people in general. When a civil rights movement or some type of like movement gains a bunch of traction, and it actually makes effective change.
Well, and again, let me point out something that gets a little bit away from the politics brain stuff. Think about how commonplace furries, monster fucking, and those sorts of things are now.
Right.
You cannot tell me that in the Marvel universe there isn't a surplus of that because mutants are a thing.
So, can I?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The thing I was going to say was like, okay, if we're actually keeping to a somewhat standard timeline, like the X-Men appeared in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
And their civil rights movement was happening along with like the rest of the other civil rights movements happening at the time. Because there were several.
Yeah.
Now, I would feel like theirs would take a lot longer, relatively speaking, mind you. But
actually, here's again me going more based on in-universe implications here. I genuinely think that for the most part, the X-Men would have had it easy, or rather, mutants would have had it easy, because. And this goes back to a criticism I have of The Boys in particular. Y'all need to stop telling anti-supremacist stories with superpowered individuals, because it's very hard to make an anti-supremacy argument when the supremacy argument is true. What I mean there is it's a hell of a lot easier to make arguments for civil rights when you are, and at risk of sounding a little bit Magneto-y here, objectively and verifiably better than the average normal person.
right,
It's the thing I keep pointing out every time, like the idea of my X-Men or my like mutant-based Elseworlds would be, which is if I were Magneto and I were making the mutants are the next stage in human evolution argument, why is he not trying to outbreed vanilla humans?
Hey,
It's a very simple argument to the more hypergamous amongst the normal humans. Hey, stoop a mutant and you might get cool superpowers out of it. Right. Given how much power is an aphrodisiac, even in our world, you can't tell me there wouldn't be mutant fuckers.
Hey, Don, may I continue my point? Thank you. What I was getting at was from the 60s to now, while I'm not going to, again, using the civil rights movement at the time as an example, right? Well, I'm not going to say there isn't bigotry and other bullshit going on still to this day. I'm not going to say that. Because there is. Granted, but it is far lesser than what was generally accepted, generally, sorry, accepted at the time. I think over the decades, again, working with how the timeline works here, right? That one, because of the X-Men's actions and just how the general populace works, the generations after that time that grew up with this stuff, that it became normal effectively. Most people would see mutants as just another part of the daily life, right? They're just people ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing. Like, okay, take me and Dawn for example. I'm as straight as they come. Dawn's my best friend, and he is for the most part gay. I do not. That is the least interesting thing about him.
Mhm.
That I know about him, right? Because that is not. I judge people based on their character rather than their superficial quirks, or do you want to say titles?
Idiosyncrasies, maybe?
Maybe. And yeah, I think that kind of approach works a lot. Honestly, my generation would probably be a bunch of mutant fuckers. Let's be fully honest.
Well, yeah, and it's especially given the aforementioned thing of like if mutant fucking was going to potentially result in your offspring having literal superpowers, the status hungry bitches, the gold diggers,
Oh, God damn it.
the women that are attracted to power, and yes, there are also men that are this way, but it's more common among women to be status focused. The only reason you wouldn't get an overabundance of mutant fuckers is because some mutations have negative consequences. Like you might be able to make the argument of, okay, yeah, I could turn my kid could be a Jean Grey or Franklin Richards, or it could be an arm fall off boy. But let's be real here, especially in today's sexual politics, there are women who would roll that dice. There are an overabundance of women who would roll that dice, in fact.
Yeah, I think the Morlocks would be generally more accepted by modern day. Actually,
Mhm.
for those who don't know, the Morlocks are mutants that have more physical mutations that are forced to hide underground in like sewers and stuff. They obviously take the name Morlocks from the H.G. Wells novel, the
Time Machine.
Time Machine. Thank you. I was gonna say Time Traveler, but I knew that didn't sound right.
Yeah, no, it's the Time Machine.
So, also, just generally, I do think a nation, either it be Genosha or Krakoa, would be established and would not be fucked with.
Potentially both. Like, there's no reason why you wouldn't have, especially as the ratio of mutants to normal humans, and this is another reason why I really wish they would fucking move the timescale up already. Like, mutants at the very start of mutation in the 60s, if we're going with the original timescale, being a minority makes sense. But over the course of the 70, almost 80 years now, if we're keeping it with, modern timing, you would have a higher percentage of mutants as the generations go by, especially because of the aforesaid. Somebody is going to make the argument, and I really want it to be Magneto because it fucking stuns me that nobody thinks of this. Given that the entire point of the mutants is supposed to be they are the next step in human evolution. And how does evolution work, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it operates kind of by a similar version of the golden rule, except in the evolutionary golden rule, it's not he who has the most gold that makes the rules, it's he who fucks the most makes the rules. So obviously someone, probably Magneto, please for the love of God, would make the argument to human women, hey, stupid mutant, and your kid might wind up with superpowers. And that's going to make a higher percentage of the population eventually be mutants, because that's how evolution works.
And I'm thinking about My Hero Academia and how that might have been something in the early days of that world. Anyway, yeah, but I think ultimately, like, don't get me wrong, I get keeping the whole, like, it's a representation of the outside of puberty minority thing, right? But well, again, to be fair, this is just a general like big name comic book companies that have been going on for so long. They often try to keep a status quo going.
Yeah.
Never really
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, never really like grow and evolve and let things stay unless they're like popular enough.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing to keep in mind if we are kind of defaulting back to the political stuff. Now, modern day Marvel Comics would never do this because it would require portraying the social justice woke movement as the villains. But if you insist, modern day writers, about making the X-Men or mutants in general a civil rights allegory, then how's about we talk about the repercussions of some mutant equivalent of something like Black Lives Matter? Because Black Lives Matter, as we all know pretty much definitively now, basically took a lot of the grievances from the civil rights movement, completely ignored any of the progress made on those issues, and warped and distorted and played the victim about those very same issues, regardless of how much they improved. So, hell, if you want to have your characters be activists, modern day Marvel writers, have them be activists, but actually portray it accurately, which unfortunately, more often than not, is going to result in you having to treat social justice like the villainous movement that it is, which would essentially be the second or third generation of mutants basically going full Magneto in the name maybe even of Charles. Like, this would be a bit tortured because modern day writers just can't think this way, but if we're going off of the parallels between the civil rights movement, or rather the disharmonies between the civil rights movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, what you'd have to have is some equivalent to, in the name of MLK, in the name of Martin Luther King, basically engaging in Malcolm X style tactics, which for the Marvel Universe, for the mutants, would be after both Charles and Eric are long dead, have a movement where people think they're operating in the name of Charles, but their tactics are much stronger resembling Magneto and the Brotherhood. And again, I realize modern day writers would never do this because it would require framing social justice as the villains, or at the very least as highly misguided anti-villains or anti-heroes. But if you insist on modern politics, then how's about we accurately reflect legitimate modern politics, which is how delusional, violent, and misguided BLM is relative to the original civil rights movement.
All right. I'm gonna be feeling this mine just because I am. It's getting late now, so I'm just
You're fading.
a little bit. Yeah.
Who had who had 2 hours and 54 minutes? You win the betting pool.
We got about the 38 seconds left.
Genetically modified banana.
It's about everyone we've lost.
From the beginning of time to the reaches of tomorrow, we stand together right here, right now.
Oh, we're getting X Force.
Interesting. Genetically modified banana.
Yep.
I believe in the X-Men. We're back, baby.
I mean, it looks genuinely good for the most part. It's like,
I think the writing will at least be on par with the first season of the reboot.
so fairly good with some issues here or there.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
the question is how long before modern day writing catches up with the show? Because it's a modern day show and it's under the umbrella of Disney. So cynical I may be, but eventually modern day writing is going to catch up with the show, and unfortunately,
Son of a bitch.
Hmm.
I was rolling my shoulders and my fucking back cracked.
If we ever meet up in real life, I'm going to have to give you a massage someday.
I do not think even you could fix this, man. I've had these back problems since I was a kid.
I would at least be willing to give it a shot.
No.
You might be surprised how good I am at this. It's one of the fringe benefits of studying like energy meridians and chakras and shit. I am very, very good at massage.
I am. All right. Well, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, advidazai, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off.